National Bridal Market in Chicago. And today we are welcoming Steve Lang from MCA. And I hope you will share your wisdom with us, Steve. And I'm sure this is going to be an interesting hour. Please send in your questions. We'll try to answer them at the end of Steve's presentation, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. We welcome you all to this webinar, and we hope that you've been enjoying the ones that we've had previously. All of these webinars will be posted on our website. And of course, we always love to hear your input on what you'd like to hear about. Also, I want to make note that we did send out a survey yesterday to both the exhibitors and the retailers. And we hope that you all take a second and answer the survey so we know what you're looking forward to. Steve, welcome to the webinar. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. I would like to suggest, if you have limited bandwidth, that perhaps you may want to turn off your cell phone if it's competing with your bandwidth. You'll get better reception. You won't drop us. John, let's go ahead with the first slides. What I'm going to start with is by telling you that Monterey Academy has been happening since 1995. We've done it for as long as 3 days. We do it in an abbreviated fashion at one-day events. There's a wealth of material. This is a college-level course. I've conducted it at 2 major universities. I enjoy it very, very much. It's part of the giving back philosophy that I have. So today I'm going to go very fast. I'm going to cover the basic financial aspects of running a retail operation. Let's forget about COVID-19 for a moment and just concentrate on the issues of how do you run a successful business. And I'm going to take you through the financial numbers, and I'm going to talk about how to close sales. I'm going to talk about social media, do some Q&A. We've announced that Monterey Academy will occur every month for the next 12 months. And at the end of the presentation, we'll tell you how to sign in for that. We've already had our first session last month. The next one is June 22nd. And that will feature a lot on social media, which you will need to drive traffic into your store. So let's go to the first slide, and we're going to talk about financials. And I know numbers are a little bit dry, but let's go through the vital signs of what it takes to be successful. They're basic tenets, basic pressure points: gross margin, sales per square foot, inventory turn, close ratio, expense management, and it's all summarized in what happens with your cash flow. So if we go to the next slide, and again, I apologize, I'm going to go quickly. But before I start, I want to give you my email address. It's slang@mcbridals.com. If there's anything you want me to elaborate on, you can always email me and I'll get back to you. So let's talk about gross margin. A lot of stores don't realize what their gross margin truly is because they don't take into account items that liquidate or denigrate gross margin. So let's take a store that has $500,000 in sales. If the returns and freight are $11,000, their net sales is $489. So if their cost of goods is $250,000 because they're running a 50% gross margin, their gross margin really has to be denigrated or brought down by those returns and freight. So in this particular case, you can see they're really only running a 48.9% gross margin. So many stores forget about those credits. And really, 50% is a bare minimum for March. Frankly, it's not enough. I've just raised all my MSRPs to help stores get better margin. But in later presentations, we're going to take you through how to actually increase that gross margin up to at least 55%. Next slide, please. So let's talk about sales per square foot. When I interview stores, I basically ask a couple of vital sign questions, and I could tell whether that store is successful or not. Brand new stores starting out should do at least $100 a square foot in their first year. So a new store at 3,000 square feet needs to do at least $300,000 and will probably lose money. Years 2 to 5 should show increases up to $250 a square foot. And after year 5, you really should be reaching to hitting that $300 a square foot. And there are so many aspects to hitting those numbers that we can't possibly cover today. But that's why I encourage you to sign on for the full year of training that we do at Monterey Academy. So this 3,000 square foot store at 300 a square foot would be doing $900,000. Now I've seen stores of 3,000 square foot do $2 million. I've seen stores of 3,000 square foot do $600,000. And there's a lot of variables that go into that. Next slide, please. Okay, inventory turn. Inventory turn is a measure of how you are rotating the inventory in your store. So let's say we have a store that's doing $600,000 a year, and the average inventory carried on your books for the year is $150,000. So how do you calculate turn? You take that inventory and you have to calculate that inventory at retail selling price. So in this particular case, you divide 600,000 by the carrying level of inventory and you get 4 turns. You must turn your inventory 4 times. Why? The first turn gets you back your cost of goods. The second turn helps you with your marketing and your mistakes. The third turn covers your overhead, and the fourth turn is your profit. I see too much inventory in stores that's just choking the retailers because they're not turning their inventory. And that's not necessarily meaning they're overbuying. They could be overbuying, but there's a lot of issues that go into inventory turn, and we're going to cover that very soon. So I should hopefully be able to ask you what your inventory is and divide your sales by it and come up with more than a number of 4. I personally turn mine 8 to 10 times. So I know if I drop below that level that my bank's not going to be happy. So it's important, it's very important that you turn your inventory at least 4 times. Next slide. So too many stores have too much inventory that doesn't move. And in Monterey Academy, we do cover how to move inventory. They don't know their turn numbers. They have cash tied up in inventory. They don't know how to move closeouts. They don't know how to buy effectively. They don't use open-to-buy planning. There's weak financial controls. They allow an inventory to consume assets. They don't have a proper close ratio, and they don't have the incentives for associates to move inventory. Every one of these subjects, we spend in-depth time in the elaborated Monterey Academy. That's why sometimes it takes us 3 days when we go off-site to do this, to really entrench. And I've taught this at Syracuse University and at Drexel University to graduates, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, all of these parameters do work. Next slide, please. So let's talk about close ratio. This is the lifeblood of any store. Close ratio is the percentage of customers that purchase when visiting your store. So it's really important to understand this. And I think one of the biggest failings is people have a poor ability to close sales. And that's a problem. And for years, it was, a minimum of 50% closing. Well, if 50% is not enough, it's really, to me, it's the bare minimum. Your close ratio should be 65 to 85%. And I have plenty of customers who do that. They reach those numbers, and there's a method to doing it. So if you're doing 600,000 in sales and you're only closing on 50% of your customers, your true potential, your universe, if you closed on 100%, would be $1.2 million. Now, nobody closes on 100%, but if you closed on 75%, this store would be doing $900,000 instead of $600,000. So our goal is to increase that close ratio. And I want to talk about what that means in terms of overhead absorption. If this store is doing $600,000 and its margin is 50%, its gross profit is $300,000. If we know the store net profit was $50,000, by just arithmetic difference between the gross profit and the net profit, it leaves you overhead, which must be $250,000. So this is a telling point. If you have 1,000 customers that purchase from you and your close ratio is 50%, then each customer that bought from you has absorbed the following overhead. You take the 250,000, divide by 1,000. That's $250 of overhead that it's absorbed by every sale. Now, that may sound good, but it's not. If you consider what happens on the next slide. If you look at how many people come into your store and you're only closing on 50%, that means 2,000 customers are in your store. You closed on half of them. Your overhead per visit is $125. By arithmetic means, you can see that's the case. When you spend 4 hours with a customer and they don't buy from you, and a consultant says, well, no harm, they'll be back, or they may not be back, but it didn't cost us anything. It absolutely cost you something. The lights were on, you were paying rent. This is why close ratio is so important. So when your close ratio is low, you're spreading overhead over fewer sales. You're missing opportunities to close on more sales and lower your overhead per transaction. Now, this is going to become very important when we look at profitability. Too many stores don't know overhead. They have per sale, and they're hurting the overall financial picture by trying to sell less expensive merchandise. Don't get caught in the trap after this new normal 2.0 of lowering your prices of your goods. You're going to have to sell a lot more dresses to cover that overhead. Next slide, please. So let's look at the effect of low margin on a low margin ratio. So let's talk about 3 stores, A, B, and C. They're all the same square footage. One store does $600,000 a year and has a gross margin of 50%. Store B does $825,000. Their sales are higher, but they're the same size store, and their gross margin is 52%. And store C does a great job. Their stores are over $1 million, and they have a 55% gross margin. What does this translate to? Next slide. So if we look at store A, $600,000, 50% gross margin, $300,000 of initial gross margin. So now, if you look at store B, if they had a 52% gross margin, they had the same $300,000 of initial gross margin, but they had an extra $12,000 in profit, or 2%, because they had the higher margin of 2%. So their margin is 4% better. So if you divide 12,000 by 300,000, you'll see they've done 4% better in margin. But look at store C, they have a 55% margin. They got $300,000 again, that's the 50% level, but the extra 5% in margin gave them an extra $30,000, or a 10% increase in profitability. So when we weigh the parameters of gross margin and turn and closing ability, it starts to manipulate and turn into a snowball, and you'll see it in the next slides. So let's, again, we look at these 3 stores, A, B, and C. Do they sell the same product mix? If they do, close ratio is the only issue that can affect them. If they don't, it could be an issue of close ratio and the product mix that's affecting them. And that product mix issue is, how do you increase margin? How do you change your product mix to increase margin? That's a whole chapter of Montreal Academy in and of itself. Next slide, please. So the power of close ratio. A $600,000 store with a 50% close ratio is attaining half its potential. It's really, if you sold everybody walking in the door, you would have a $1.2 million store. In this particular case, if they had a 69% close ratio, they'd have sales of $825. An 87% close ratio would bring them to over $1 million. And if we go to the next slide, we're going to see again, same 3 stores. Look at the volume per square foot. First store is doing 200, then the second's doing 275, and the third's at 350. That's how we come up with those sales levels. If the gross margin that we pull from the prior pages is listed here, 50, 52, 55%. I want you to see the effect of the higher margins going above the 50% level. So in store B, they have an extra $112,000 in margin just by virtue of their sales level, but they also bring in an extra $16,500 because they have the higher margin. Store C does even better. Because their sales go up, there's $225,000 extra gross margin compared to store A. But then there's a kicker of another $52,500 because they've generated an extra 5% in their gross margin. So look at the total margin increase versus store A. Store B is generating $129,000 more in gross margin. Store C is doing almost $278,000. So look at the increases in margins. In store B, margin went up 43%, but their sales were up 38% higher than store A. That's leverage. Higher sales, but even greater margin. Look at store C. Store C compared to store A had a 93% increase in margin and a 75% increase in sales. So you can see higher margins, higher close ratio make a big difference. Now, the extra 5% or 2% for stores B and C are not the biggest contributor to the increase in profits. It's the close ratio. It's the ability to sell more product in the same footprint. And that's one of the keys. You'll see throughout my presentation, I never ask you to buy more inventory. What I'm asking you to do is to tune up your sales force. And with COVID-19, this is more important than ever before. You need to be sharp and ready to go. You need to hit the ground with your wheels spinning. And I'm seeing people going, our business is picking up. I see people going into stores, and brides are not shopping around because they don't want the exposure, and they're making decisions immediately. That's a good sign. We need to take advantage of that, increase our close ratios. Next slide. So how does the close ratio increase margin and overhead absorption? Again, we have our 3 stores at different sales levels. We see our gross margins. We see our overhead. Overhead has been gone up for store B and C because they become bigger. They have more expense because they've got more salespeople, more commissions perhaps. But look at the profit. Store A made 8% in the same footprint. Store B did $129,000 in profit. And store C had $278,000 in profit. We're talking about the same footprint. Now, stores B and C will be able to do more in marketing, more in training, more investment in their business than store A, and should be able to continue to eclipse the performance of store A. So store A, we'll call an average store. B and C are stores that have been tuned up. And that's the goal, is to tune you up. Not to ask you to buy more inventory, but to do better with what you have. Next slide. So what are break-even sales? It's very simple to calculate break-even. You take your sales level, you take your overhead, and you divide your overhead by your gross margin, and it'll tell you the sales you need to generate to break even. So store A has a $250,000 of overhead. If you divide that by 50%, you'll see their break even is $500,000. Sales minus break even, of course, now is 100. 600 minus 500 is 100. And at 50% gross margin, their profit is 50%. In this particular case, their overhead is 42% because their profit is 8%, and it has to total to 50. Store B, on the other hand, has a 52% gross margin. So their break even rises to 576. That's $249,000, and the profit, therefore, is 129. So in this particular case, they're $225,000 higher in sales than store B. That's a 38% increase, but overhead is now dropped to 36%. So the increase is 38%, but their overhead dropped, meaning more money's going to the bottom line. In store C, it's the best example. They do $336,000 to break even. Again, you take the gross margin and you divide it into the overhead. So they need to do $636 to break even. But sales minus break even for this store is $414. If you take their profit of 55%, that delivers $228,000 in profit. Now, their increase in sales is another $225,000 compared to store B, just as store B was $225 more than store A. But the percentage change now is 27% against store B, and the overhead has dropped to 33%. So you see, this store is leveraging higher volumes against a slower increase in overhead, and therefore they're much more profitable. And that's the name of the game. I mean, my goal has been, ever since I started Moncherie, my mantra has been to, my product, my mission has been to make money for my stores. And it's never changed in 30 years. So these examples are tools that I use all the time to evaluate what's happening. So let's go to the next slide. Overhead absorption. Store A, B, and C, we see the same sales levels. And let's assume they only sell wedding gowns. Let's make it simple. So the number of dresses sold at $1,500, you will see will be 400, 550, and 700 gowns. Look at the overhead numbers and look at the overhead per sale. You just divide the overhead into the number of gowns sold, and you'll see the profit per sale for store A is $125. It jumps to $235 in store B. What a dramatic increase. And then it jumps again to $325. And again, these stores are all the same size. It's just that one's doing a better job than the prior store. And again, I'm not talking about bringing in more inventory. I'm talking about turning your inventory faster. Next slide, please. So expense management. If you have a 50% gross margin, each dollar of expense is equal to $2 in sales. Very powerful. So if you're doing $600,000 in sales and you can cut your expenses by $10,000, that's the same as increasing your sales by $20,000. You'd have to increase your margin from 50 to 53.3 to get an extra $20,000. So it's important here. One way to cut your expenses, for 13 years, I have been promoting North American Bank Card, which is the second largest card processor in the United States, through a contact that I have in Michigan that was given to me by a store. I saved $75,000 a year not processing my credit cards through my banks. And if you want to do the same, the average store saves about $5,000 a year. I've seen stores save as much as $40,000 a year. Call Mary Critchley. Her number is 1-800-644-0225. I've been with her 13 years. You cannot beat the rates. 1-800-644-0225. If you can beat her rate, she'll give you $1,000. And I promote her as long as she continues to do a good job for the industry. I know she just saved one manufacturer $200,000 a year. They were getting beat so badly by their bank. You don't change banks. It's all done electronically. But the other good thing is they'll lend money to you against your credit card receipts where a bank will not. So if you're in a bind, call her. Mary Critchley, 1-800-644-0225. Tell her I sent you and that you want the rates that she has created for the industry. She processes for about 10 manufacturers now and about 1,000 stores. So if you want to save money, give her a call. If you don't, you're leaving money on the table. Let's talk about expenses. Salaries for your staff, not including owners, should be between 16 and 20%. The closer you are to 16%, the more profitable your store is going to be. And those of you who don't have incentive programs and you need help, call me. I'll help you. I've done this for many, many stores. Your advertising to sales ratio should be between 2 to 5%. A new store will spend more. An established store may spend less. And part of this is too, if you're in a high rent district and you have great visibility, part of your rent could be considered advertising. So if you need help figuring this out, call me. Too many stores don't budget. The very first thing you must budget for is profit. People plan incorrectly. They have the paradigm upside down. Start with how much money you want to make and then work backwards through your expenses to the point where you know what your sales need to be. A lot of people start with, I want to do 5% more, but you have no idea what that means to the bottom line because you haven't calculated the expenses in between. So again, you need help, call me. Too many stores overpay for things, like I said, for credit card processing and banking. We've created, when we do the big 3-day event, I have software that I wrote and was put into tutorial by the Wharton School of Business that will model your whole business on a desktop. It'll do your expense, your cash flows, your P&Ls. It does everything your accountant can do, but it's specific for our industry, and you can ask it questions, and you can do experimental buys with it, and it'll tell you the impact on your business. It's brilliant, and I give it to the stores for free. But that's done at the big 3-day events where you bring a laptop and I teach you how to use it. It's not hard. Next page. Cash flow is the life of any business. More good businesses have failed due to lack of cash than any other reason. So if you have months where you can't pay your bills, if you didn't plan for profit, if you don't budget correctly, if you don't update performance budget each month, do you budget by department? Do you have sales teams with goals? Do you measure performance? Do you incentivize? Do you have a dashboard? You should have a dashboard that shows you the following. What are my orders for the day? what are my close ratios by salesperson, how many people walked in the door, how many people didn't buy. You should have a dashboard that shows you every single day what's going on in your business. I do on my phone. I know every order that's come in for the day, and I can compare it to the prior year. So if you need help with dashboards, I can help you with that too. Next slide. Again, do you have a 5-year plan? Do you own your building? Do you negotiate all your expenses? And how do you tackle your entire financial plan? Look, folks, I know that numbers, I love numbers. I happen to like numbers, but a lot of people don't. And numbers will either do good for you or they'll bite you on the tail. And you need to know what the numbers mean. And again, if you need help with this, I'm more than willing to help you. And John's going to put up another slide that tells you what we're doing on an ongoing basis. We have already done the first Monterey Academy. The next one will be June 22nd. And there'll be a schedule for every single month. Now, what I'm going to do, I've listened to so many people on where they need help. I'm going to hire experts to bring in, and I'm going to underwrite the vast majority of it. I'm going to bring in lawyers. I'm going to bring in accountants. I'm going to bring in specialists in social media. I'm going to bring in people from Google. Each month there will be a different subject, and we're going to get people trained to do a better job. So it's a 12-month subscription. It's $499 for the year. Trust me, there's a lot of expense that goes into. In the last 30 years, I've invested $1 million in training. Half of that is the $500,000 I spent to build a full-time training facility here in New Jersey, which is now up and running again. I believe in education. I put my money where my mouth is, and now I'm going to extend it and bring in some of the most intelligent people that I can find to help my stores stay profitable. So if you want to get into this, you're more than welcome to join us. I mean, our first seminar we did last month, we had 500 people registered. I mean, we went 4 hours. We were supposed to go an hour and a half. We went 4 hours. It's that impactful. So if you really want to learn, think about this. It's about $40 a month. If you got 4 people in your store participating, that's $10 a person to get college level training. Where are you going to go find that in this country? And I don't do Monterey Academy to talk about Monterey. I'm here to help you survive so that my business survives. I have issues with people who are out there consulting who, are doing it as a business. I'm doing it as an ancillary to what I do every single day. I want my stores to be healthy. I appreciate anybody who teaches and helps, but it's really got to show a payday for that kind of help. So enough of that. Let's go on to what I consider the most important thing that I started in 1995, and that's how to close sales. And at the end of this, we're going to do a Q&A on anything you want to talk about with the amount of time we have before we close. So I think we have a hard stop. We've got a maximum of 2 hours. We have a hard stop for 4 o'clock. Okay, so can we go back and take these slides down now, John? I think I lost John. John, are you there? I don't know if you can still see me, but I'll keep going. I don't know why that slide is still up.
Hi, Steve. I'm here. It's you want Science of Closing a Sale, right?
Yeah, Science of Closing a Sale. Sorry.
That's what you should see on the screen right now.
I still have up the Monterey Academy notification.
Hang on one second.
Okay. There we go.
Hang on one second.
Now you can see me. Here we go. Okay, this is where we started in 1995, and we built upon this. So one of the things I'm going to do is I want to ask you, what gives you or gives me the right to stand here and do this for you? What gives me the right is you. I desperately want my stores, or any store, and I don't care if you're a customer or not. That's not the purpose of doing this. I have many people that have come to Monterey Academy over and over. We put thousands of people through this course, but I never talk about Moncherie, and it's not my intent to. If you're in the industry and you're healthier because of it, then that's great. So before we get into this, I want to see if I can prove something to you. I want everybody to take 2 fingers. I'm going to prove to you. You probably, if you've never been through this, you're probably a little resistant to think, well, what can he teach me in an hour, 2 hours? I want to show you how you can control your customers. So I'm going to do a little experiment. I want everybody to do exactly what I do, because teaching the science of closing a sale requires you to follow step by step. Each step builds upon the others. So here's what I want you to do. Take 2 fingers, and remember, do everything I do. Put those 2 fingers right on your chin. Go ahead, put them there. Everybody got them there? This is your cheek. This is your chin. Now, what did I do? Some of you I probably tricked. But what I proved to you, or hope to prove to you, is that if you follow the methodology, and if you're a good salesperson and learn how to be a good salesperson, you're going to be a better closer. I convinced you to follow me because I followed my own teaching of the 7 steps. So let's go. Let's go to the next slide. One of the things to understand here is that there is, how do I put it? Assumptive selling. Today, the assumptive selling technique is this definition. If you have a store and you open the door and you say, I think we're going to do well today, as opposed to, I know we're going to do well today, we're going to close sales. That's assumptive selling. When you walk into my showroom, I know if I go through the right steps, or my salespeople go through the right steps, you're going to buy from us. I don't think. It's like the person who's been in the Olympics or trying out for the Olympics and spent 4 years training. They don't get up in the morning and say, I think I may do well today. They see themselves crossing the finish line every single day while they're practicing. And that's the difference between thinking you might sell and knowing you're going to sell, the assumptive selling. It's, and you have this issue, you have to understand about communication. Here's what happens. You're here, bride's here, or Kinsey customer, or bridesmaids, or mother of the bride, and there's a big rift between the two of you. You have to understand how communication works. Until you reach equilibrium and you're eye to eye, you're never going to close as many sales as you want to. So you're here, and you want to get them the dress of their dreams, and you want to turn them into referral, and you want to make a profit. They're over here saying, I'm going to take up all your time. I don't care, they've got a posse with me. It's all about me, and I know you're a big, bad retailer. There's a lot of dissonance between the two of you, so you've got to work to get to equilibrium. So how do you do it? There's this natural issue of communication. Think about this. Who in a law firm is the highest paid individual? It's the litigator. What's a litigator? A litigator is a salesperson. They walk in and they have to convince 12 peers sitting in a jury box and a judge. 13 people they have to convince that their sales message is better than the person next door. They're selling. If you go to any major Fortune 500 company, the VP of sales makes more money than the VP of marketing. Why? They can bring home the bacon. They're rainmakers. So I want you to understand what goes into communication. The old adage of product, price, promotion, and place. These are the 4 Ps of selling that were coined by Philip Kotler when I was in graduate school doing my MBA. Well, I had a 5th variable. I call it personality. All stores have a personality. JCPenney, Nordstrom's, Target, Tiffany the jeweler, David's Bridal, all of these should connote an image in your mind. But with personality, with this P, it's one of the most important today. Millennials, I do a whole section on marketing to millennials that we couldn't begin to touch today. Marketing to millennials is an art. They will not trust what you say. They will trust what someone of their own age, in their own situation, says. That's why social media is so important to Gen Z and the future generations, the pivotal generations, the prom people. What goes into personality? Store appearance, color, fixturing, flow and arrangement of product, how you greet, how you dress, how you speak, how you act, how you listen, how you smell. Did you ever walk in and somebody got too involved with Chanel No. 9 and Eau de Skunk? You got to be sensitive to what happens around you. Your salespeople are your fighter pilots. If they don't look right, if they don't act right, if they don't smile, if they don't look the part, they're never going to close as many sales as you possibly can. And when we role play, when we get together and do this for several days and we role play, what a difference. people coming in are very different when they go out. So let's talk about that master goal of increasing sales. And I want to go back to a very simple formula. Let's say you have a salesperson that you rate an A, and they're closing the bare minimum, 50% of the customers they see. 50%, to me that's low, but let's say they're your A salesperson. You have a B salesperson who only closes on 40% of the customers that come in. Think about the math here. If I can take someone from 40 to 50%, that's 10 points difference. But that 10 points represents a 25% increase in business. 10 points divided by 40 is 25%. There's nobody in this world that can guarantee you, buy my line and you're going to have a 25% increase. They'd be Pinocchio if they said that. But you take a salesperson and get them from 40% to 50% in sales, that's a 25% increase in sales. No extra inventory, just salesmanship. Now let's take the C person who's only closing on 30% of their sales. You take someone from 30% to 50%, that's a 67% increase in sales. So in this particular store, if I had two A's, a B, and a C, and I did the math, that store has a 42% close ratio because they're drawn down by the B's and C's. If I took this store all to the level of A, which is just a 50% increase, the store's volume would go up to $104,000 more, or $704,000. And that increase in profit, if they had a true 50% gross margin, that increase in profit to that store is $52,000. Same store, no more inventory, no more advertising, just tuning up those salespeople to produce more. Now think about this. That store at $600,000, if they went to 75% close ratio, that store would be a $900,000 store. And the bottom line would be better. This is my whole point. You don't need to buy every line out there in the marketplace. You just need to know how to turn those tools. Every dress you buy is a soldier, but some soldiers don't shoot. Your salespeople are the same way. Some people can sell naturally, some people cannot, and they shouldn't be on the selling floor. They become a detriment. So that's the whole lesson of the master goal of knowing how to increase your sales. And we have to go through this before we go into the 7 steps. So let's go into the 7 steps to closing a sale. The first step in closing a sale is the greeting. Now, this is very similar to the first date. This is like, hi, my name's Mary, and I'm going to make your experience here as pleasurable as possible because I have to. You came to me, you visited me today, and you have a lot of choices to shop. So I'm going to work. My obligation is to do my best to find the dress of your dreams. Now, that may sound corny, but as soon as you start to recognize people, you're bringing down the walls. Remember the walls of equilibrium? It's very important. You welcome them heartily into your store. Empathy, be friendly, be sincere. And you have what I call the 10-second rule. You have about 10 or 15 seconds to recognize somebody before those walls go up. Did you ever go in to make a purchase and somebody's on the phone? I said, just 1 minute, I'll be with you in a minute. And it was more important for them to finish their call than to recognize you. That's the worst thing in the world. When people walk into our showrooms, I've seen customers get upset if nobody comes over and greets them. It's very important that somebody's an ambassador for your store and you have that 10 or 15 seconds to start to bring those walls down and make them comfortable and say something like this. Please sit and make yourself comfortable. We're crazy busy today because all of the designer dresses are in here. It's that time of the season. We're so excited you came. Please make yourself comfortable. In a moment, myself or one of my wonderful consultants will get to work and we'll get the party started. We're so glad you came today. You welcome them into your home, not into your store, into your home, and you've helped bring the walls down. And Americans are not used to being talked to that way. Experiment. Next time you walk into a bank or you go through customs or any place where someone has a name badge, say thank you and use your name. You will see the difference in attitude you get from that person. I do it all the time, and I smirk inside because I know it works. It makes people feel more friendly if you use their name. So it's key point during this stage, this introductory point, where you do some targeting, what I call targeting. Who's the bride? Who's influence here today? Who in her posse is going to be the biggest influence? And you may have to ferret out who's what I call the KIAF, K-I-A-F, the know-it-all friend. That know-it-all friend may be there to undo your work, because her most important mission in life is to prove she's smarter than you and everybody else in the posse. And if you don't handle the know-it-all friend and turn her into an asset, you're going to take a punch in the face. You need to determine where else they've shopped. Too many salespeople use this and this in incorrect, obtuse proportions. They don't listen enough and they talk too much. People don't like to be talked to too much. They want their questions answered, and they don't want to hear, a diatribe on why you're the biggest and the best. I'm the biggest and I'm the best and we're the best store in town, those are boasts. And millennials and Gen Zs don't like boasts. They like referrals from people in their own camp. So it's really important to listen and to know in the targeting stage where they've been. The second step is to befriend them. You need to bring down those walls. You need to communicate you're not there just to take their money. People are not used to this. Hi, I'm going to work to make you comfortable, find a dress of your dreams, work within your budget, and make a wow presentation that no guest at your wedding ever is going to forget. People go to weddings, they normally talk about the food or the music and so forth. They rarely talk about the bride. Maybe her family does. People are going to walk away from your wedding raving. You're going to set the bar for how gorgeous you were, and people are going to talk about your gown. Why? Because my reputation goes down the aisle with you. I'm there with you. And those of you that have been invited to weddings know what I'm talking about. You befriended these customers. And when you befriend somebody, it's a lot easier to turn them into a referral. So you just got married myself. You got to find common ground. I just got married myself, or my son or daughter just got married. I know your family. I think I recognize you. We went to the same school together. I drive the same car. It's important that you convert a stranger to a friend to a customer, and a customer into a referral. And in subsequent sessions, I can't do it today, we just don't have enough time, I will teach you how to get incredible referrals. If I can show you where every bride can give you 2 referrals and you've got a 50% close ratio, I just increased your sales by 1 more that you wouldn't have had before. I'm going to show you the power of referrals and how you plant the seed at this stage to be able to get that referral later on and build a business. So the key point here is you're turning this stranger into a friend. And you have to use the you attitude at all time. I understand what you need. I understand about your budget. I understand about your family. I understand about that tattoo you uncovered. It's all about them. It's not about you. If you boast me, you're going to rip open this equation and you're going to turn a millennial off. It's never about you. It's about the you attitude. So the next step, step 3, is identifying your tools. Identifying your tools is all the verbal clues, pictures they brought in from the internet, videos, letters, referrals, their body language. You're like a doctor taking the vital signs. If they come in very confident, very maybe they've already made a decision somewhere else and they're coming in to play games with you now and just see if you can offer them a better deal. It's better when they're nervous. If they're too confident, something smells. So it's important here, you're like a doctor assessing the vital signs. Don't jump right in and get on a soapbox selling. Take soundings. Know where you are. Understand the psychology of this customer. Step 4, I see more people lose sales in this step than anywhere else. This is pulling the right dress. And pulling the right dress may not be the one that is best for her figure. If she comes in and she wants a sheath and you feel it's not for her because she's of size, don't do that. Let them get it out of their system. If that's what they want, even though maybe they're an 8 here and a 12 here on the bottom and a 7-piece dress, princess line dress would be better for them. Don't assume. You're not in a position, you're not them. They have to get what they want. But if you see it's not going right, here's what you do. You use her body, her belief, and her budget, and you add in a fourth variable that's also a B, it's your body of knowledge. If it's not going the way she wants it to go and you want it to go, this is what you do. You don't say, well, I could have told you that dress wasn't going to be for you. We could have stopped 2 hours ago. What you do at this point is ask permission. Say, look, there's a couple of things we didn't consider. Notice they use the word we. I don't single them out. Would it be okay if I showed you a couple things you might not have considered? And the reason I'm saying this is I want you to have the full gamut, that you go home eventually after your wedding knowing I saw everything and I chose the right dress. At that point, she's going to say yes. She's not going to say no. Now you go pull a dress that you feel is more figure flattering for her, and you let her try it on. If you sized her up correctly, you're going to be closer to making the sale. It's a key point at this point in your selling process that you've reached equilibrium. At the point where you pull the right dress, she has to be trusting you and the store and your product and your service and everything else. You must be eye to eye. If you haven't reached equilibrium at this point, something was done wrong in the first 3 steps. You must reach equilibrium. So step 5 is involving others. Involving others, if you've done a very good job, you know when you did your research, you heard their color story, and you know where they're getting married and whether it's indoor or out. You've done all the work. At this point, maybe the second or third visit, if it wasn't the first, you're ready. You heard that green was their color story. You say to them, by the way, I brought out 4 beautiful bridesmaids that just came in shades of green. I'd like your opinion on what you think of these. They're going to be impressed that you remember that green was their color story. And it evolves them now. It brings them into, I'm going to sneeze in a moment, I'm sorry. It brings them into feeling that you're more adept at what you're doing. You know, I had a situation where I went into a store and I did a Montreal Academy on a Sunday morning for a store with 4 salespeople. Of course, the manager didn't show up because who was I? I'm a manufacturer. I'm going to come in and teach her how to sell. I'm not a retailer. Anyway, I worked with the 4 young ladies on the floor. The store opened at noon. Customer came in. It was a new bride, first time shopping. The mother and the mother-in-law came in. So the bride and her mother went this way, and the mother-in-law went towards the mothers of the bride. Now, I hung around just to learn. I like to learn. I like to observe. But I watched her touching every dress that was in the Ruby family, burgundy. I went up there and said, you like burgundy, don't you? She says, oh, yes, it's my favorite color. I said, with your hair color, you would look stunning in that color. I see why you like it. Brought the walls down. I said, would you like to play? I'm not busy. I didn't tell her I didn't work there. I said, I'm not busy. Would you like to try one of these on? She goes, oh, it's not my day. My future daughter. I said, they're fine. They're busy over there. If you feel comfortable, ask them. You can try some dresses on. She goes, no, I think it's okay. So, of course, selfishly, I pulled all the montage dresses. Well, guess what? She fell in love with the dress of her dreams. She said, I love this dress. I said, do you want to show the rest of the party? We went around the other side, and her future in-law, the other mother, said, oh my God, that dress is gorgeous. She goes, I love this dress. What do you think? And the mother of the bride said, well, I'm going to wear royal and burgundy. That's going to look great in the pictures. And the mother-in-law said, you don't mind if I buy this dress? I've fallen in love with it. She goes, no, go ahead. Well, the mother and the bride, it was their first visit. And no matter how hard they tried, the sales consultant couldn't close. It was the first store on the first visit. Very difficult. But that other woman went home after making a purchase of $500. Now, that store made money that day because of what I taught them. And the whole time the manager had come in at that point, watching me and, cursing under her breath, he's going to blow it. What's he doing? He has no right to do this. Guess what? That manager was fired on Monday by that store owner because the store saw clearly. And the 4 consultants were like, well, this is what he just showed us how to do. That's $500 sale they wouldn't have had. Plus, that bride eventually came back. What more can I say? It works. It works. So when you pull the right dress, you also have to be careful of who's in that bridal party. Let's come back to the kiosk, the know-it-all friend. If you make the mistake, and I've seen this many times, where a consultant will say to the kiosk, the know-it-all friend, she looks great, right? The kiosk is going to hit her right in the jaw. What you say to the kiosk, say, wow, she looks gorgeous in this dress. One of my most beautiful brides. Wouldn't you agree? Now you've boxed the kiosk into a corner. She can disagree with you and say, my friend looks like a kielbasa in that dress. Or she could say, you've condoned on me the request to give you approval. I give you that approval. See, you've boxed her in. It doesn't always work. There's not a silver bullet. This isn't a magic potion. But you've got to know how to duck before that kiosk strikes. And I know many stores go through this all the time. One woman wore a dress for 4 hours, and she's an expert. Doesn't matter you've been in the business for 20 years. She knows more than you. That's the know-it-all friend. So the next point is enhancing value. You never speak about price. If I said to you $1.63, you'd say, it's not a lot of money. But if I told you it was for a stick of gum, you'd be pretty upset. So value is I replaced the P in Phil Kotler's product to V. Value. Value is a summation of everything that they absorbed and experienced while doing business with you. So value is important. Never talk about price. Price is just a figment of their imagination. The experience, the attitude, the feeling that you're there for them forever. If you say to them, look, we're not a big box store like David's Bridal. This is my business. We don't do a lot of advertising because we don't have to. We serve families, and I want to be able to serve you and your family and any friends you have. My reputation goes down the aisle with you. I'm there with you. I'm not some fly-by-night company that hires people that are in college for a short period of time and just want to get a paycheck. My whole reputation is built upon your lively experience here and how happy you're going to be. That increases value and it brings the walls down and it makes you more important. I see too many stores where that doesn't happen. You know, I go in and I do go shopping sometimes, and the experiences that I see sometimes are just unflattering. And you know what? It takes somebody from the outside to teach your stores and your sales consultants what to do. You know, as an owner, you're like mom and dad. Children don't listen to mom and dad. They listen to somebody else. And with millennials, it's even more important. I will tell you, the syllabus for this course is this thick. I could spend 2 days just on social media. Again, I told you, this is a college level course. So I'm giving you highlights now. This is why I plead with you. I plead with you. I'll give you my time, my attention, and that of any consultant I bring in. You need this training. Sign up for the courses. It will pay you huge dividends. So step 7, ask for the sale. One of the biggest failing points. People get alligator arms when it comes to ask for the sale. It's incredible. I see people do a great job of explaining, but they let the horse out the barn because they become timid when it comes to asking for the sale. You've earned it. You've earned it. Now, we know that closing on the first time they visit is hard, but if you've done everything I've told you and you implore yourself to them, you're going to make a difference in their attitude towards you versus someone else. I want that bride or Kinsey customer or mother of the bride to have cognitive dissonance that they didn't buy from you. They go to some other store and say, you know, product is similar, but Mary and Allison treated me so much nicer at ABC store. I'd like to go back and do business with them. This is one of the techniques of getting your close ratio up. Now, this is where we had left it back in 1995 when we first started this, but we've gone on to many different aspects of learning how to close. And when we do role playing, we actually teach people to look for the signs of success and failure by watching people actually doing this. So let's go through some power closes. You have a bride that comes in, can't make her mind. Make up her mind. You use what I call the Benjamin Franklin close. He's the one that came up with pros and cons. So you say to her, look, I know this is stressful for you, but let's do this. I have found for myself personally, this works very well. Let's think about all the pros and think about all the cons. You help her think up of all the pros. You don't say anything about the cons. You let her list up the cons. And after you do that, you say, well, you've got 12 pros and you have only 1 con. This is out of your budget by a little bit. I know that. And then you have a chance to go to work on that 1 con. Let's say it's $300 more than she wanted to spend. You certainly could play let's make a deal somewhere. Or you could say, look, let's think about If you're married for 30 years, maybe 60 like Mike Perhams, let's say 30 years, that $300 comes out to $10 a year to have the dress of your dreams. Isn't it worth it? And you have to know how to be quiet at that point, because what they say next will lead you to what you say after that. When you break it down like that, they'll go, I never thought of it that way. Do you want to look back at your pictures and know you took a second choice dress and not the first? Is that really what you want? Look, I'm your friend. I'm here to help you. But I also want to see you at your wedding day having not 1 second of second thought about what you're wearing. It works sometimes, but not always. This is one method. Let's talk about I want to think it over close. This is an important one. If they all say that, respond by the following. That's fine, Mary. Obviously, you would not take time. You would not take time to think this over unless you were seriously interested, right? At this point, give a little smile as though you're defeated, and you ask the question. So, since you're that interested, I'm going to assume you'll give it careful consideration. Think about it slowly, and they think you're going to retreat. And they're going to answer yes. They're not going to say no. Of course, we're going to think it over. You always have your head. When you want someone to make a yes statement, you always have your head going like this too. Don't just sit there like this. So twist and clarify. Twist a little harder. So let me clarify your thinking. What is it you wanted to think over? Is it integrity of the store? Oh no, it's not. Was it our selection? Oh no, you had so many great gowns here. Was it the service we showed you today? Oh no. Every time they say no, they're reinforcing that those things were right. Invariably, you're going to wear them down to find out. And most of the time, it's one of two things. I've only gone to 60 stores so far, and I haven't gotten it out of my system. Or two, budget. But if you just said, okay, well, maybe we'll see you again, and they walk out the door, you're never going to please your Crow's ratio. This method helps you ferret down and give you another choice. To me, a professional salesperson never takes no for an answer. They continue to hammer and hammer and hammer until they wear down their opponent. You'll eventually wear them down to an objection that perhaps you can work with. Let's talk about the reduction to ridiculous close. This is when you have an objection over money, and you determine that the bride wants to save some money and she's going to buy online. And you say to them, look, I understand you want to save $300, and I thought I heard somebody saying about a website, but think about this. You buy from an unknown person on a website. Is it a counterfeit? Are they going to steal your credit card? And maybe they're a legitimate store, but maybe they can save you $300. But what happens if the dress comes in wrong and they're not really an authorized dealer? They're transshipping that dress. Is it worth $300 for a wedding where you're going to spend $30,000? Does it make a difference to you that the most important part of the wedding, your dress, could come in damaged or not come in at all? Is it worth that risk? And learn to shut up at that point. They're either going to say, well, $300 is a lot of money to me. I really need to make that up somewhere. Then you go in that direction. You figure it out. Go get a bunch of inexpensive headpieces that you can pull out from the back and say, here's a $5 headpiece and veil I can sell to you for $200. I'll take $300 off. In the meantime, you made full margin on that headpiece and veil. And you just used it as an emergency source that had to save her that $300. Or she might say, you know, you're right. I deserve this dress. You have to know how, like a fighter, you have to know when that punch is coming. Let's talk about the lost clause sale. Use this, obviously, when you're not going to get the sale that day. You say, Mary, I want to apologize for not getting you the dress of the dream. Say, I must have done something wrong, because we always have a beautiful time here, and we usually find people the dress of their dreams. So, you know, we should be celebrating right now. What did I do wrong? Could you help me? Is there something I did wrong? I'm going to say, no. It wasn't you. And then you're going to be able to ferret down to maybe perhaps that last reason why. You're going to find it's price, or I didn't get into my system. That's really the two most important or prominent issues. You know, believe me, I'm truly sorry. I believe greatly in our selection, and I love helping people. It's my living to help people find the dress of their dreams. Is there something you want to share with me that we didn't do today that is preventing you from moving forward? That's all you have to say, and it gives you another shot. So those are some of the closes that we teach. And again, the syllabus is so huge. And, you know, we've spent an hour going through the finances, and we talked about closing the sales. You know, the two things that are going to make your cash register ring are going to be getting people to come into the store and then knowing how to close on them once they're in the store. And there's a whole large ramification of what happens with social media. Those of you who are not using TikTok, it's the most explosive form of social media right now. And we're going to concentrate on these elements as we go forward and we educate people on how to use the tools. But think about it. If you spend a lot of money on marketing and you do social media, but once they get into the store, your sales consultants don't know how to sell, you still have a problem. You're going to spend money to drive them in, but then they're going to leave and perhaps go somewhere else. You must be consummate at being able to close those sales. So we've spent an hour. I want to give you time for Q&A. We've used our hour for teaching. So now I want to go through Q&A and allow you to ask me questions. And I will tell you, if I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll be honest about that as well.
All right, Steve, that was amazing. So I have a couple questions I'd like you to share your answers. On one of your slides, you had an advertising line item of 2 to 5%.
Correct.
How do stores zero in on a return on their investment on that 2 to 5%? And what have you found in your experience is the most rewarding for the stores that really zero in on what's going to work for them? And as you say, follow through once the consumer gets into their store. Because I think this is one thing that so many people don't know where to put their advertising dollars.
Right. Well, the advertising should go in social media. And again, we do complete modules on this whole issue, teaching you how to do social media, how to analyze social media, what's cutting edge. And that's what's coming in the future MCAs. And I talked about dashboards, and I could spend a whole day talking about dashboards. Whenever you do a promotion, whenever you advertise, you start building a track record. We did this week of last year. We did it again this year. What are the results? How many people came in? What did they come in from? What did we close that day? What was our close ratio? Did we have the same people on the floor that time? Did we lose a salesperson that was key? You can advertise, but if you don't drill down and understand what's around you in your circumstance that may have affected, think about this. Advertising puts them in the gun barrel. If nobody pulled the lanyard to fire the cannon, you lost. So it's not just the advertising, it's what you do and how you use it. You know, for some people who have high rent and high walk-by traffic and so forth, maybe they spend 2% of their sales on social media, 3%, and the other 2% comes from the fact that they're paying a premium for rent to have the traffic. And there's so many ways of analyzing it. And it's a bit of an art. It's not totally science, but tracking what you've done and keeping a black book of statistics is very, very important. And, you know, if you don't like to do this, somebody on your staff, somebody should be the social media maven, and you can hire interns. There's lots of ways of doing this. Guys like Mike at Saivo are fabulous. There's so much here. You know, the message I want to give everybody is the new normal. The country's never going to be the same. After Pearl Harbor, we were not the same company. After 9/11, we were not the same country. So there's a new normal coming, and I want to help stores understand that we're all in this together. I mean, I love doing this. It's a passion for me. I like this more than anything else. I love teaching. But there's so much to this. You can't absorb it all in one sitting. And that's why we went to the decision, I'm going to spend more money and bring in more people and do this over the course of a year. And those of you who want to travel to the Northeast, we have a 5,500 square foot training facility where we built it just for Moultrie Academy, where you can come in yourself or send people in. And when we do that, it's free. We don't charge you a penny. We feed you, and we're there to help you do a better job. Because think about it. Stores are if I was a painter, stores are my canvas. If there are no stores, I'm not going to paint anything. You stores are the backbone of this industry. Without you, you know, what Jane does and what Monique does and what I do, we're dirt without you. You know, and I have to tell you, I should get on my knees to thank you, whether you're a customer or not. You work so hard. You pour your soul into this. You're on your feet. I can't tell you enough. I mean, this means I'm on my knees in Chinese. I'm on my knees to you. I beg that you stay in business, and I'm here to help you. Next question, Jeannie.
That's great. Okay, another question came in. Can you have too much stock? in a store. And
Absolutely.
how do you figure that out, Steve? How do you
Well,
balance between your reorder, your sales off the rack? When is the right time to get rid of a sample?
well, the financial model that I built basically helps you do that. And again, if we go back to the turn numbers, whatever inventory you have, turn the paradigm upside down. If you have $150,000 worth of retail inventory in your store, you better be doing at least $600,000 in sales, because that gives you 4 times turn. But every dress has a 6-month life cycle. If you bring a dress in and it was a little bit fashion forward and your customers aren't ready for that, but if it's been in the store 6 months and you haven't turned it into cash, turn it into cash. And sometimes, we've all seen dresses where if you put a sleeve on it or if you put a belt on it, it becomes a different dress. I tell people, take their staff, buy from me or anyone else who sells it, the sleeves, the gloves. You can redecorate your dresses. And you tell your salespeople, I'll give everybody a $50 bonus for every one of these designer one-offs that are moved. You'll see that inventory disappear. And I've seen people successful with this, and I see other people say, wow, too much work. I tell you, my dad taught me this. I mean, I come from a humble background. My father had 2 pennies that were borrowed, but he was a stand-up person. And when he passed, there were busloads of people at his funeral. He's my role model. I've had a train coming down the track my whole life. I wanted to live better than my parents did. So I know what it's like to scrape and scrimp. When I started Mortuary 30 years ago, I mortgaged my house. And I said to my wife, we're either going to lose the house or be successful. It's going to be one or the other. But you got to move that inventory. If you can turn your inventory 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, you can make a lot of money. And it's not an issue of just overbuying. How many people eat but never go to the bathroom? None. You have to flush what's bad. And there's a whole technology to doing that. And if you don't have a sales incentive program put in, I urge you. There's no study in the world, and I read everything. There's no study in the world that will convince me that people that aren't on some kind of selling situation, that aren't on some kind of incentive program, have helped lots of people create incentive programs, they're going to do better if they can make their own way. I know this for a fact, and you'll never convince me different. And I can help you create an incentive program that doesn't cause competition.
Okay, so is there a formula about how many samples that you should have in stock per square footage? Is there a way to figure out what's a reasonable amount of stock that a store should maintain?
Well, this comes down to a situation by situation analysis. If you carry maids and mothers and you carry brides and you carry Kinsey, you have to do the same analysis. Every division has to turn at least 4 times. So there isn't a patent answer of how many. It's the issue of what you're buying and how fast you can turn it. And then what are the sales as a result of that, as opposed to saying, I want to do $1 million in sales, how much inventory should I have? It really takes an analysis, store by store, to know what your sales are, where they're being driven from. And these are the kind of workout sessions I've done one-on-one with people. I've helped people sell their store. I have one particular friend, I won't go into who it is, who owned the building, was going to sell the business, and she said, I'm going to sell it for $800,000. And they told me, that's the most I'm going to get, and I have to give away basically the inventory and everything. I said, well, ho. I said, give me your spending on advertising for the last 30 years you've been in business. I wound up getting her 1.2 million because I said, sell your name. If this person starts all over again with a new name, think of the money you spent for all those years. They're going to have to recraft who they are. She got 1.2. So there's so many angles of what goes on with running a business. And, I don't want to sound pompous, but I hold 2 MBAs. I work for some of the biggest fashion companies in the world. I invented some products that went on to do hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. I've learned a lot from being in this industry. There's a lot of knowledge that I have that I want to share, and I'm turning my company into an employee-owned company. My future people are going to run this business are the people who work for me, and my management staff has been with me for over 20 years. They stay with me for a reason, because they're building their future. And I have to ensure that there's a retail environment so that I can meet my goals. Look, why did I take on the counterfeiters 7 years ago with John Liney? We closed 3,000 counterfeiters. We've taken 30 million images off the internet. We've just sued Cloudflare, which will be if we win, and we think we will, it'll shut counterfeiting in so many industries, not only ours. And everybody told me it's not worth the fight, you won't be successful. Well, you know what? We proved them wrong. Again, from my dad, if opportunity's not knocking, go by a door, knock on it yourself. That's been my mantra forever. So I don't want to sound pompous, but my aggressiveness is there for a reason. I want people to take advantage of it. I want to help. Jane, next question.
Next question. This is interesting. What do you feel is the best way for wholesalers to get in front of boutique buyers at this time? So I'm not sure, Alexandra, if this is for me or for Steve, but it's reaching out and picking up the phone and calling. I mean, you send pictures, you try to get to know the boutiques across the board, what kind of styling they're looking for, what they might be missing in their mix. It's just so important to just stay in contact with the boutique buyers and be sympathetic to what they are going through at this time.
Absolutely, and to listen, and
Yes.
to listen. I mean,
Yes.
I take every last input I can get, good, bad, and indifferent. I just don't want to know the good stuff. I want to know where I can improve. And I've been fortunate. Prior to the COVID, this company has grown every year it's been in business since 1991. And we were up almost 10% on March 9th, and then all hell broke loose. So we were on plot for a record year. And last year was a record year. We were going to break that this year. And here we are. So I will tell you, you may knock me down, but you won't knock me out. And that's the attitude I want every store to feel. I mean, I do. And we can get through this if we work together.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking that across our country, with everybody reopening at different times, and except for Chicago, New York City and LA and certain parts that are really still a hot spot, all of these boutiques are just really going to be challenged in how to reopen safely and how to move through their stock, and then how to interact with their clients that they work with and the wholesalers that they work with. And I have to say that I've heard that most, if not all, of our exhibitors and our wholesalers have been very sensitive to everybody's situation that they're going through, which I think is a wonderful statement for our industry, that we all have to be in this together.
Right. I would recommend you do the following. I would recommend you take the attitude in your store as if this was your new grand opening. Couple of things. You want to promote that you're open. You want to be excited that you're open. You want to reinforce to people that all the steps you're taking to secure and make sure in COVID-19. Research has just come out saying 99% of the transmission of the disease comes from person to person. It was just in the Wall Street Journal today. Tactile, contact on doorknobs, it's so minuscule compared to the issue of the masks. You want to promote to them that you've cleaned and everything's being disinfected. You want to even rearrange your store. If your store's crowded, take some of the stuff off the floor, make it cleaner in the back. Take some merchandise off the floor. This is a great time for people who are in a hurry up offense that are going to get married quickly because it's been delayed, to move some of that stock that's in your store. You can take merchandise and do your own trunk show. You don't have to wait for new merchandise to come in. You could say, we have great new dresses from ABC Company. Put them on a special rack with special ribboning, and it doesn't matter that it's not, from 2050. I mean, it's the future. Yeah. It's now. People are going to be looking, and I'm hearing from stores, they're walking in, they're busy, and they're closing because they don't want to go from store to store. If you invite them in and make them feel comfortable, they're going to buy from you.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, our next question: what is the future of bridal, and how can small shops compete with the luxury brands like Vera Wang and the other high-end designers?
Look, there are all kinds of people at all kinds of price points. The one suggestion I would give you is to know your market. Stick to what you know. If you're good at $1,500 and below, stay there, but consider in your research, in your dashboard, when you meet with your salespeople once a week, and this is a subject we didn't touch, is sales meetings. Your people are on the floor. They're going to know what you lost in sales quicker than anybody else. At your sales meetings each week, what brands were asked for? What price points were the girls' budgets? What do we have that met the demands? What did we not have? And if you're finding that you're walking 20% of your brides because you don't have more exclusive dresses, you move in that direction. If you're saying people are walking in saying our dresses are too expensive, they don't want to relate, then you know you may have overbought in areas that you maybe should back down a little bit. But I don't like to walk anybody into any category. You need to know. It's one of the reasons, look, in Mother of the Bride, we have Cameron Blake at a certain point, then we have Montage, then we have Yvonne D. We've strategized to make sure we can cater to everybody. So you need to know who your customer is. I see a lot of people, and people who buy with their own taste as opposed to what their consumers will buy. You know, I show a dress that's a hot dress and somebody says, oh, it's not for me in this area. So why is everybody else selling it? The problem is that person interpreted the dress whether they would wear it. That's not your job. Your job is to know what your customer will buy. When I see people buying with their own taste, I know they're going to get in trouble because they're not listening.
Yeah. So let's talk about prom. Where do we think prom-based stores, and what are their challenges going to be?
Well, look, COVID-19 has, obviously it Pearl Harbored prom 2020, and it's going to affect prom 2021. I'll tell you what we're doing in particular. Our prom lines will be small for 2021. We're also going to keep all of the hot dresses from 2020 active. We're going to keep all of that inventory. The top 20 dresses in each division are going to remain active. So those dresses that are in your store will have legs. Let's face it, this prom 2020 and 2021 are going to be difficult, but there's a record number of kids in elementary schools and high schools. Prom's not going to go away. It's sick. The country has the disease. Business has the disease. It isn't such the individuals. But prom is going to be a situation where we're going to have to crawl a little bit until we can walk and then we can run. That's the honest answer. If anybody tells you anything different, again, Pinocchio.
Okay, any strategy to how they deal with the dresses that they have hanging in stock that they were hoping to, sell in February, March, April, June, and now what do they do with this stock? How do they manage, that square footage that could be now taken up with other product to sell? Any suggestions on how they manage this inventory?
Yes, what I would do is if I still had a lot of prom stock left over and it's not going to be sold because of the obvious reasons, I would do the following. Figure out what out of that prom stock will go easily a social occasion that you can sell to a young mother of the bride or a guest of the wedding. The stuff that's truly prom, take off the floor. Put it in boxes, take care of it, and bring it back out at the right time. Before you know it, time moves very quickly, and you start doing pre-spring prom as early as you can next year. I mean, the inventory still has value. And again, myself, and I know other people that I speak to, I talk to Claudine at Elise, I talk to Michael at La Femme, I talk to, Omid and Navid. A lot of us will keep active dresses going so that inventory gets another shot next year. We may even re-photograph some of the great dresses. And if you have a dress you sold well and you're afraid it's going to be recognizable, invest in another color in that dress. Put that color up front. It'll look new. And when they come in to see it, they say, oh, I see it's in the window in black. Do you have it in red? Yes, I happen to have a red one. And you start moving that inventory. Look, we all have to, look, we were fortunate. We held we hold a show in June every year in our own facility. We sold a lot of dresses in June. We cut early, we shipped early. I've got maybe 5,000 Ellie Wilds to get rid of. That's it. Everything else was sold. So we're going to keep those good styles active. Same with Colette. We're not stuffed with inventory right now, thank God. It's in the stores. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to discontinue too much. We're going to keep things running, and we're going to put out very small lines for spring 21.
And I think that's what we've been hearing across the board going into the upcoming seasons and what people are going to put out smaller collections.
Right. I want to address one thing, Jane, while on this subject. I want you to think about something. My background is packaged goods marketing. I was taught by ex-Procter & Gamble people, the best at marketing, the classic marketing. If you look at the paradigm of distribution of ages, I've morphed my company. The only thing I don't do are bridesmaids, but we do kids and we do formals and we do all these different life cycle events. If you think of a woman standing in white at a wedding, say there's 150 guests, split it down the middle, half men, half women. There's 75 people there. They're going to buy dresses their whole life. Right. And they're not necessarily white dresses. There's a whole ocean. There's 2.4 million marriages a year. A third of them are second marriages. So now you're down to 1.6 million. 200,000 make or borrow. There's only 1.4 million people who are going to buy the big formal dress. But there's millions of people that are going to buy social occasion dresses.
Yep.
I decided a long time ago, I'm not a bridal company. I'm a major social occasion company, and bridal is just one form of social occasion. So if you're not in Quincy, there's 58 million Hispanic-based people in the United States. There's 35 million people of African-American background. There's more Spanish people, 1.5 to 1, against people that hail from Africa, and they're very big on quinceañera. There's more quince girls in America than there are brides.
Right.
And
Well, that's interesting. That's our next question. What's the, tell us about the future of quinceañera, which I think is going to be a category for people to really try to capture, because you get the girls that may be younger junior bridesmaids, they might be getting older, but it's a good segment, I think, to
Quincy's
consider.
huge. Quincy is huge. We developed Princessa, and it just exploded.
Yep.
Because the demand is there and there's not as much competition. We've taught 4 couture factories how to make stunning dresses that have uniqueness about them. And, I believe in it. It's going to do very well. And that population is growing. It's the quinceañera, and they spend money. It's not like.
Yeah. In the years that you've been doing it, is there certain things that the stores can do to reach out, capture that client to come into the stores?
There is. If
help them?
The modern Quincy's, the girls today want to be more fashionable. But if you can have your part of your Quincy website, if you have a Quincy part of your website and have it translated into Spanish, that's great. If you work with the Spanish community, the Spanish churches, and you have someone help you translate some advertisements you can put up and put it in Spanish and welcome them in. In some cases, they're afraid of the blue-eyed customer because they don't want to be looked down upon. You have to welcome them in. You have to say, please come to my home. I want to take care of you. And a satisfied customer is worth gold. So you have to go out and build that door and knock on it. Move out of your comfort zone. And again,
is it also a good idea to hire a Spanish-speaking sales associate?
Oh, absolutely.
Translate.
Our customer service team for Princessa is Spanish.
Yep.
They speak Spanish to the customers, absolutely. But welcome them in. And again, any of these topics I've talked about today, you're more than happy to contact me directly, and I can help you.
Okay. I don't see any more questions. I guess I really should ask you, how are you and your family doing, and everybody at Mon Cherie?
Everybody's good.
Everybody's healthy?
Everybody's healthy, thank God. One of our designers lost her husband to the disease, and I had 2 workers in the office that came down with it. But we're managing, and we're thankful. I'm thankful every day. My family's okay, and I just want to get back to business as usual, and for our stores to feel relief. Folks, if you remain confident, you have to demonstrate that you're going to win, that you don't think you're going to win, you know you're going to win. And myself and my staff, we're here to help you. When I do Mon Cherie Academy, I try not to talk about Mon Cherie. And if you want to talk about Mon Cherie, I do it on a sidebar. My goal here is to help the industry stay safer. That's the reason for the anti-counterfeiting. That's the reason for all the academies we do. That's the reason for, thank you, Jane, for inviting us to do this. We want to see everybody do better.
Yes.
And again, I give you a big virtual hug.
Yes, back to you also. I also want to let everybody know that everybody that signed up for this webinar today will get a copy of the slides that Steve showed, and you will be getting that after, this webinar is over. It will take them a couple hours to get that through, and we'll make sure that the slides will be made available. Okay, someone wants to know, how are your orders running? I guess they're talking about deliveries.
The orders are coming in. I'm watching every day building. One of the things we've done with the air freight carriers have raised the rates ridiculously. We were paying about $2.40 a kilo. It's now $10 a kilo to send a dress in. So when we air freighted a wedding gown, it was about $25 a dress. it's gone up by 3. So we've shifted everything to go by boat, and you can't even get an airplane at times. I mean, so many of the carriers are not going. So it's added a month to our deliveries. And I see a lot of people moving to boat. We just can't keep passing along these increases to people. So, we're eating them. I am still air freighting in emergencies so that we can handle things that are close to wear dates.
But are most things running on time, do you think?
Most things are running on time. We run 40 factories. We haven't lost any factories. They're all running. But it's challenging. It's challenging. I'm seeing the orders pick up. We've cut our expenses dramatically. And if anybody wants to talk about how to cut expenses and call me, I'm more than happy to talk to you about that. But these are challenging times for all of us, every single one of us.
You brought up an interesting point about the shipping. Do most stores consider shipping costs when they price their gowns to make sure that they are not eating the shipping on this?
They should.
Or are they passing that on to the client? I mean, is this something they should consider?
It should be factored in.
Yes.
When the tariffs hit, we increased our MSRPs to cover the tariffs.
Okay.
And I know some people didn't pass anything along with the tariffs, but I'll say this: I pay every penny in duty and tariff that I'm supposed to pay. I don't play games.
Yeah.
I don't cheat on my FOB prices from Asia and nail the government because I don't want to go to jail. So what I did is I increased my MSRP and I passed along the increases in the tariffs, and the freight is killing us. But I do everything. I could teach arrows how to fly straight. I mean, I want to put my head on the pillow at night. No, I'm not going to jail for cheating. So we raised our MSRPs to cover these expenses, and of course it raised the retail prices of our dresses, but stores need to make more than Keystone.
Right, and they need to check their shipping prices, I would imagine. Absolutely. To keep abreast of what is going on to make sure that their costs are covered.
And I will tell you, we have plans in the future with guidance from stores. We are going to create a private label division that will give stores 3 to 4 times markup.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yes.
All right, Steve, thank you for sharing your time, your knowledge, and your wealth of information with the stores and us. I always learn something new every day, and I think it's important that we all keep communicating with each other. It's how we're all going to survive. Yes, there is a video that will be available on our website, nationalbridalmarket.com. By tomorrow, you'll be able to access this full training session that Steve has provided us. And we also welcome everybody's questions to the market individually. We are in the process of trying to figure out the safety and well-being of even holding a market, which we are trying to figure out because, as you know, Chicago is still trying to work our way through this, and we'll be coming out with more information as that comes to us. So I hope everybody keeps checking back with our website to find out where we are and how we're going to proceed going forward. Steve, is there anything you'd like to share with us in a closing comment?
No, just that I appreciate everybody giving me a little bit of time in their life, and I want to give a round of applause to all of you for taking time to do this, and I hope you participate with our ongoing program where every month some people had issues. One person wrote to me and said, where do I find information to get a legal release? If you go on, every state's going to have different laws, but if you go on and you Google COVID-19 release document, you can find lots of places where you can get a document where you can use to get your customers to sign off so that you're legally in the clear if you want a release document for them to sign. And the other thing, if anyone, and I offered this last week when we did a seminar, if anyone doesn't have a current handbook, employee handbook, you must have that to protect yourself legally. If you need one, I've spent a lot of money developing mine. I'm more than happy to share it with you. The only thing you have to do is verify any nuances that affect you in the state. Just email me, slang@mcbridals.com, and I'll share with you. I'll send you a PDF of our handbook. Just make sure it covers your state law is covered in it.
Okay, great. So I'm going to remind everybody that everybody that's signed up for this webinar will get the copy of the slides from today, and the video will be available on our website after tomorrow.
Right.
So,
And if you want to drop me a line, anybody wants to drop me a line, about how you felt about today's seminar or the topics you want covered, I use that feedback and I listen to every email that comes in. So drop me a line. Just tell me how you felt about it.
okay, great. Steve,
Thank
thank
you,
you very
Jane.
much.
You're
Continued
welcome.
well health and well-being, and to all the stores that are listening, we are with you. If you need anything or we can help you out in any way, please contact us. And we will be having more webinars every week to keep you all in contact with each other. So everybody's congratulations on the stores that get to reopen, and I hope it all goes well and everybody stays healthy. And we'll talk to you soon again. Steve,
And
you
Jane,
take care. And
we
John,
want to thank you too, Jane. You and Monique and the entire Chicago Dream Team. We love you. You are so committed to this industry, and we're blessed to have you.
well,
And
thank you.
you
Thank you.
filled some very big shoes, and you've done a great job, Jane. I really think the industry owes you a great deal of thanks for everything you do.
Well, thank you, Steve,
Thank
very
you,
much.
Monique. Thank you, Monique.
Everybody have a great and safe weekend.
Thank you.
Take
Bye now.
care. Bye-bye.